6 and 7 of the Standard. Alarm as counties registered drop in revenue collection. Alongside that story is also the allocation, county cash allocations, with Nairobi getting 15.8 billion shillings. That's a big story. I think Lamu is the lowest with 3.7 billion. And then also the state opposing this bill on World Project Fund, which was also before the Senate. Yes. That's a big discussion. Let's start with this alarm as counties registered drop in revenue collection. This happened across all counties. Yes, 2 billion shillings in total. It could be said probably it was because of the elections, but a lot has changed as well. New governors came into office. Should we really be concerned by this headline? Because we're simply looking at a headline. Let's start with you, Bwana Omatangi.
Thank you. Fred, what I think about, especially on the lowered revenue collections and the trend that has continued, because that's a trend that has continued. First, when the first governors came into office, they thought that it was fashionable to make big budgets based on bloated prospects of high revenue collection. But then onwards, they realized that they were shooting themselves in the foot because they would prescribe those high budgets, premised on high collections, and then they would fail and find that they can't be able to meet most of their obligations. But some of them opted to intentionally continue that way so that they could cheat the system. So that you find at the time of making a budget, governors would intentionally cajole and put together their members of county assemblies and push them and incentivize them to make budgets, including their CECs, which have got untenable and unrealistic collections, so that they could be able to sell LPOs. So that once you have pronounced a budget of 20 billion, you can be able now to go ahead and tell Fred, and we come and supply, we have this budget, that will be approved, and then give me 10% of the tender. That's how they in fact, that's how most of them financed their elections in 2017. They went and blew this. Now, on this trend of the continued lowered collections, you know, what has been happening is, and this probably would be the darker side of devolution. It would be the darker side of what we came up with to incentivize the counties through their governors by giving them money, is because they turned them into beggars with a basket. So what you find is when a governor is sitting in the office, his planning total is about how much money am I going to be receiving, how much will come in conditional grants, how much is going to come from other areas. And so that's why you find that when the focus is centered solely on what will be coming from national government, with the passage of the bill like the one that was being passed yesterday in the Senate, then there is no other reason for any other governor to think out. And I want to divide this quickly into two, and I've always made this argument. It's passionate to me, it's important to me, because we got CEOs into office as governors without a clear mind, or demanding them to be clear in the mind. One, that they have to, yes, collect revenue from existing sources and new ones and large ones, but also that they have to think and generate revenue for their counties. Now, you see, the biggest problem is if you beam across all the 47 counties and ask each county, come and tell us, since when you started your government 6 years ago now, which new revenue streams have you either expanded, generated, that are helping your people? You find the zero. Everybody there is sitting waiting to receive money. And that's why you find that if you across, although there are a few counties that benefited from the 2% on fiscal responsibility, you will find that majority of the counties actually lost out on that particular.
Makueni is listed as one county that actually improved on its revenue collection, yes, from 43.7 billion in 2016-2017 to 66.2 billion. What are they doing right? What are they doing right in comparison to the rest?
It's just improving the system. There are two things. One, in the revenue shortfalls came about...
Sorry, the figures are in millions, not
in
billions.
Millions, not billions, yes. The revenue shortfalls were reported highest in the 2016-2017 financial year. And there's only one reason: politics. Because governors all over the country waived what would be their collections, land rates, etc., for purposes of then becoming populist In fact, I was sharing with Senator Matangi, and I must, because I owe this to the public, that the governor who was removed in Kiambu recorded one of the highest on-source revenue collections, but was still removed because most likely the Kiambu residents thought he was being extremely punitive to them. But unknown to them, Kiambu is amongst the 18 counties that are receiving a share of 6 billion shillings this financial year, being the 2% tax incentive that has been given to counties for collecting of revenue. Lamu has received 1 billion shillings extra for collecting revenue. Counties like Machakos have lost 500 million. Let me say this, that the problems we have is that governors are concentrating on the wrong things. They are taxing Wanjiko. Border riders make 500, governors want 300. Yet ideally, the component under the constitution which governors should be collecting a lot of money is property taxes. Problems about property taxes is that the valuations are still in the 60s. So governors are not collecting property taxes and they are waiving them. In Nairobi, governors, the national government is not paying property tax to Nairobi County. But what is it that we want to see? Well, we take pride in saying that the 60% of the GDP is in Nairobi. The biggest shortfalls are in the city. The biggest debts are in the city. If you were to rank Nairobi in financial terms, you would say Nairobi is under receivership because it has more debts, more debts than the money that it has to pay. It's under receivership. But if national government paid the property taxes for the building it has in Nairobi under current rates, Nairobi would be able to sustain itself without necessarily stretching a hand to collect money from the national government. The third thing is that Nairobi and all the cities that were provincial headquarters enjoy certain facilities that are higher than the rest of the counties. So we, as Senate, we are trying to find a better method of when you rank Kiambu, Nairobi, Mombasa, Makueni and Isiolo together is not correct. It's not it's not equitable.
Yes.
Because some of them enjoy facilities of development that was there since independence, that others, rural economies, Busia, for example. Busia is amongst the worst because it's at the frontier. We call it the last frontier, unlike Mombasa, which enjoys proximity and enjoys a lot of other facilities through national government. But what the ultimate objective is this, that governors, to sustain counties, we must make sure that they do not beg with begging bowls every year. We want to see in the next 20 years sustainable counties with own source revenue, collecting revenue that can sustain their budgets. But lastly, counties are over projecting their budgets and collections so that they can have what we call a balanced budget. Those who are clever like Lamu did not do an over projection, and that is why when they collected a little, they look like they have done a lot. That is the problem. But ultimately, we must make sure that counties can collect revenue.
Okay. Kakamega appears as the second highest in terms of loss of revenue, only second to Kisumu. Kakamega lost about 43.7 because collected 102 million in 2016-2017, then the next year 58.3 million. What do you think is a problem? Is this something that we should really worry about?
This is something which even the very design of the Constitution did not emphasize. We missed it. Revenue collected at source is the future of devolution.
Yes.
Why do I say this? Because there is the model we are having has been tested for many years in a country called Belgium. In Belgium, they have 3 states. They have the state of Wallonia, they have the Flemish region, and then they have the capital, Brussels itself. So Wallonia and the Flemish region and Brussels, they collect their own revenue. And because of what goes on in Brussels, you know, it is the center of the EU.
Yeah.
There's so much revenue that Brussels as a state collects. It collects more money to the extent that it lends money to the nation called Belgium, to the national treasury. National treasury borrows from Brussels, the state.
Yeah.
So we should have designed our constitution in such a manner that we gave greater emphasis on money collected at source. Mutula is an authority on law, and he'll confirm to you that there was a case sometime 2-3 years ago in court where there was an attempt either to get a ruling or a ruling was made that the Senate should limit its oversight to only revenues that comes from the shareable.
Of course, yes.
The budget.
Yes.
And,
It was the Oparanya ruling.
it is called the Oparanya. Thank you for using the word. People are going to say I'm now playing politics. So,
Wow.
that foolish ruling that came, not foolish because the judge was foolish, but because of the very design of the Constitution, it allowed the judge to make that ruling. If he was right or not, Mutula knows. But the fact that we have gone silent over revenue collected at source, we have created a cash cow. Governors collect revenue and they underdeclare.
Yes.
Okay. In the evening at 5.
So some of these losses are not genuine.
No,
It's not genuine.
not at all.
This designer.
Of course they're not.
It's not.
They're not.
And because our public is so keen on playing politics with everything.
We focus too much on the national
Yes,
exchequer and what
yes.
money was coming to from the central government.
Yes.
Forget about the revenue collected at source.
Yes, I said it when I was in the chair of public accounts.
Yes.
I commended Governor Kabogo.
Yeah.
I commended Peter Munya. They were doing a very good job. And it was my dream that other governors would copy them. But what became of them? They were defeated. Okay. In quotes, they were defeated. Okay. So emphasis should be put on revenue collection because the future of the devolution is that counties will grow their own revenue and therefore expand the local GDP, so to speak.
In a minute.
Gentlemen,
in a minute.
Our time is up. I'll give you less than a minute. We have 30 seconds each.
Yes.
Okay.
In a minute.
Final comments.
In a minute to say this, that we have a letter at Senate and where I sat in the committee with Halwane that Nairobi underdeclared its revenue by almost 7 billion shillings.
Yes. 7 billion.
Unbanked.
Yes.
And for the first time, KRA attached an account of a county government and removed 1 billion shillings because of undeclared revenue. So the controller of budget has not done this country service. She should declare that county governors are not declaring revenue.
Exactly.
Okay. You know, and probably I just wanted to enrich what Boni Halala was saying. And you see, for example, the reason why counties like a region like Brussels will be collecting so much is because they have intentionally decided that they are going to be an efficient global trader by making their ports the best in the world. And that's how they're able to collect revenue and even lend to the national government. The reason why Guangzhou in China competes with the national government in terms of revenue collection as a province is because they have opted intentionally to be the best in terms of trade and export and making efficiencies around the economic power areas of their own people. And that's why they also are a strong or a powerhouse in revenue collection and even lending. And lastly, on this issue of own revenue sources, because as Mutula says, yes, actually revenue is being underdeclared, not only even by half, but even the worst thing is that this revenue is spent at source.
Appropriation
the same day it is collected. You find in the evening it is collected, put together. They say to go and take this one, go and pay so and so, this one, go and give this one. I mean, spend the way you spend money in a kiosk at the evening. You know, and that is the worst tragedy of what is happening.
The final word on this
word. There's this thing about words.
The words, but do you want to say something about a final comment on this?
Give him
okay, fine.
Let me say something.
Halal has given up his final
one statement. One statement on the words. Once the intention of the senator is to ensure that wards are treated equally in terms of revenue and development. What it has now revealed that if you attempt to treat wards equally, one ward per capita in Lamu, one person is 27,500 per capita, and the other ward is 100 shillings per capita. So the attempt to equalize counties will actually create inequalities. That is a statement that came from the Commission of Revenue Authority. But the intention is that governors are are doing what the former regimes used to do. Develop the places where they get support and ignore the places where they don't get support. And if you oppose them, they don't do developments. So we're going to come up with a criteria where it will be mandatory to ensure that there's equitable, not equal, equitable distribution of development.
So this, you will still push through with it?
We're still working on it.
Wow.
Work in progress.
Thank you so much, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. from